This is live from Broadcast Square, a public affairs presentation of Seward County Broadcasting and Talk Radio 1270. Your phone calls concerning today's show are appreciated. Now, live from Broadcast Square.
And good morning. Welcome to Live from Broadcast Square here at Talk Radio 1270. My name is Joe Denoyer, host of the show. On the phone lines with us from Hooker, Oklahoma, we do have CEO of TCEC Zac Perkins and Director of Media Relations Julie Ann Graham. Zac, with these rolling brownouts, where are we at and how did they get started?
Most of the country went to these RTOs, regional transmission organizations, to better maximize generation assets throughout footprints to get synergies. And it was also a big push of that was reliable transmission lines that were built. A ton of transmission lines got built that connected renewables to the grid so that they could flow from the rural areas to the load centers. So they took a much bigger role in the dispatching and grid operation of the bulk electric system. So they are truly the market that dispatches what generation is dispatched onto the system to produce the electricity we consume.
All right. Now, what are we currently experiencing through the Southwest Power Pool with these rolling outages? Why is this happening, and why haven't we experienced this in the past?
Again, two great questions. I'm going to hit the second one first, and this is the first time the SPP has ever issued an energy emergency action, or EEA level 3, ever in their entire history. I mean, we've all heard of rolling blackouts in parts of Texas about a decade ago, and it seems to be the norm in California. But typically here, we've always had enough capacity to meet any demand that was put on the system. Now, that being said, this is probably the single biggest weather event that the entire area has ever experienced, as far as, when Liberal or Hooker or whatever is the same temperature range as some of North Dakota for an extended period of time and bitterly cold. That is why we're experiencing the issues, which gets me to your first question. What's really going on is the Southwest Power Pool relies heavily upon renewable energy. Matter of fact, in 2020, wind was the number one producer of energy in the Southwest Power Pool, and they're the only RTO in the country that's ever had wind be the number one source of energy. Now, when it gets this cold and there's, we've had a lot of dense fog last week, those renewables, and we were cloudy, those renewable sources aren't available. So we had to revert back to some traditional power generation, and unfortunately it's so cold in some areas that the natural gas pipelines that feed a lot of these plants, these generation plants, are froze up, and we can't get natural gas to the plants to help stabilize the grid. So the last contingency for all RTOs is to go through what we're going through now, which is rolling blackouts, and that is every utility, and I don't know how many hundreds of utilities are in this 14-state region, but hundreds, if not thousands. We're all, doing our pro rata share of shedding load to keep the grid stable. Because if the grid goes unstable from a frequency standpoint, meaning generation and load are matched and in sync, we run the risk of it all going dark. And if that happens, that means all the generation goes offline, and it will take days for that to come back up. You don't just fire up a coal plant or a nuclear plant. Those take 24 to 48 hours to get back up. So what we're trying to do is prevent the worst case scenario. That's really the purpose of what a rolling blackout is.
Okay. And the question that I have been asked and that I have heard discussed is, okay, just like we here at the radio station, we're without power from 8:20 till just right before you and I went live on the radio station. So we're without power at this time, along with a lot of other consumers through these rolling blackouts. But the minute it comes back on, it seems that consumer usage would go up. Is that when they roll to another area to kind of stabilize that?
Exactly. So what's really makes it very difficult to predict, and let's just use simple numbers, I think, here. Let's say that, utility A is required to shed five, whatever that is, megawatts or kW, it doesn't matter. They shed 5. Before they bring that 5 back on, they're going to shed another 5 and bring the other 5 back on. So we're always trying to keep that in balance. So that's why it's really hard to predict, because each feeder, each substation, each community has different load profiles, and the utilities are having to go out there and specifically pick and try to keep that 5 as whole as they possibly can. Does that make sense, Joe?
Yeah, that makes sense. I know for the last couple of days, TCEC and other utility companies have been encouraging consumers to unplug, shut off, not use as much energy, turn the thermostats down. That's still in play. We still need to do that until we get through this horrendous cold snap.
Exactly. Yeah, anything that we don't have to produce to provide for helps. And it's more of a, you may say, well, I unplugged my Keurig and I ran my dishwasher last night before I ran my hot water heater or my dryer or whatever, and you helped. At one particular location, it's not a lot, but when you take it over a 14-state area and everybody's doing that, it does become cumulative and really, really adds up. And the thought is, if everybody can do what they can do, we avoid prolonged rolling blackouts.
Okay. And Zac, I think it's important that we reiterate this. I know you had mentioned it, but a lot of people are saying, well, what does electricity have to do with heat? Because heat is produced by gas. But again, I think you addressed that, and by, with the wind energy to now having to use other sources to produce this electricity. But again, if you just want to throw that out there so folks understand.
Yeah, I think that's good. It's kind of twofold, Joe, really. A lot of electricity is produced by gas turbines, which is the single biggest issue we have right now. But even in communities, a lot of gas is moved to communities through compression stations that use electricity. That, even at your home, if you have a gas heater, there is an electric component to that, whether it be the blower or helping ignite the pilot light or, et cetera. So electricity is always part of the equation.
All right. How can consumers prepare for a rolling blackout? I know you guys are probably at the mercy of the Southwest Power Pool on the rolling blackouts, but hospitals, seniors at home, those on oxygen, how can we better prepare when it comes our time to be?
That's great. I know, and I can't speak for other utilities, but I know that, Tri-County's goal is the last things that will go off will be nursing homes, hospitals, and our hope is to not even include them. But you never know what the situation's going to be. I know we have worked extensively with our emergency management groups, and they're setting up warming shelters to where if you are off that 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what utility you're with. There are places to go get warm, stay warm, and then know, after a certain time frame, your residence or your business or whatever will be back on. That answer your question, Joe?
Yeah, definitely did. Chris and Juliana, we've talked in the past about the use of generators, generator safety right now, probably first and foremost when we do experience that hour or whatever time frame. Firing up that generator again, we don't want to throw power back on the lines, and we don't want to make our homes unsafe. So that's generator safety is
always a big concern. You're exactly right, and just a simple phone call to us or your local utility just to let them know that you're on a generator will help, especially if you've been on a circuit or an area that's been turned off and you can stay on generator. They know that they can reduce that piece of the load from the calculation and continue to count it towards whatever requirement that they have to shed.
And I know you've been on the phones all morning, whether with consumers or with folks from the Southwest Power Pool. As we look at a forecast, we're either right or we're wrong. It's 50-50 every day. Is there a prediction on how long these rolling blackouts will last? I know last night we dropped down to level 2. This morning, waking up, we were back at level 3. Anything from Southwest Power Pool when we could probably stabilize?
The last press release we got from Southwest Power Pool was about 6:55 a.m. this morning, and they were saying anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. I can tell you we were hoping for the 24 mark. We were hoping we'd be done by today, but I don't want to give any false hope. So we're going to plan for the worst and hope for the best and say, hopefully by Thursday this is over, but very hopeful maybe Wednesday. If some generation gets back online, that'll help a whole bunch. And hopefully, we're all doing this again or sending out press releases here shortly saying, hey, we're stabilized and we're back to at least a level 2. Okay. But we got a long ways to go right now from what they're telling us.
All right, even at a level 2, we still need to be diligent in conserving as much.
Absolutely. Yeah, level 2 just means that there is capacity to meet demand.
Okay. How does the northern section of the Southwest Power Pool affect where we live? I mean, we're talking what, South Dakota, North Dakota, usage up there. Does that come to play down here?
Yeah, it does in the grand scheme of things, because the way SPP looks at it is one complete entire grid.
Okay.
So there are subsections of that grid that may have worse or better circumstances, but it takes all of us working together to make the whole grid balance. So it's really one entire giant engine, for a lack of better description.
Okay. When I was first trying to get a hold of you, I think I was caller number 33 on the main line. I think I'm going to go straight to the horse. So will consumers at TCEC, like you said, you can't speak for other utility companies because there are hundreds throughout the Southwest Power Pool. Will TCEC have enough lead time to let consumers know when the city of Hooker or parts of the city of Hooker are without power, or Guyman or Elkhart or areas like that? Will you have enough lead time so they can prepare, maybe get that loved one to a warming center?
The further we get in this today, we'll have a little bit more lead time because we're getting further into the plan. What has kind of slowed us down or threw a monkey in the wrench, so to speak, a little bit this morning was the initial request was much smaller than the secondary request that came out about 7 minutes later. So we had to scramble, and we were implementing a plan, and we had to go back and start from square one. So now I know that we are working diligently to at least call the city managers. We haven't yet got the ability to put that on Facebook. We're doing our best to try to let it know. The problem with it is matching. Sometimes it's just going to be one feeder and sorting through the data of which consumers are on one specific feeder, and then they have multiple meters on other feeders. It gets really convoluted when you start getting into the data. So I think, at best case scenario, we'll be able to post, hey, in 30 minutes, it's going to be the Hooker's turn this time. And, in 45 minutes or 30 minutes after that, it may be Elkhart's turn. And I'm not saying that's the rotation. Please don't. Okay. I'm just throwing those out there as examples. We're getting much clearer in how that's going as this progresses, Joe. So I'm hoping we can do a little bit more communication than we've done early this morning.
And another thing that we have talked about for several years now is the app, Smart Hub. Will that help consumers notify, maybe alleviate some of the phone calls when they're without power, and if they go to the Smart Hub app?
It will at least confirm that we know that there's an outage, and if we know that there's an outage, there's no need to really call us. If you're out for longer than 30 minutes, please do call us. That means something didn't come back on, or it's an isolated event. I know we've had one accident earlier today that took out a pole somewhere. I can't even remember where it's at, but that's a whole other separate event. But on the rolling stuff, we should know that it comes right back on, and we also know when we take it off. So, but folks are always welcome to call if that makes them feel better. But if they do use the Smart Hub, it will tell them that their meter's off.
All right, Zach, we're out of time. I appreciate you giving us an update on the rolling outages that are occurring here, not only in the TCEC trade area, but 14-state broad area. So thank you for being on the front lines and letting us know what's going on and how to better prepare. Anything else before we close?
Thank you, Joe, and we just ask for everybody's patience. We'll get through this, and we look forward to warmer days.
All right. Thank you, Zach. And Julianne, thank you for connecting us.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You bet.
You've been listening to Live from Broadcast Square on Talk Radio 1270. Comments expressed by guests, listeners, and the host do not necessarily reflect the opinion of Seward County Broadcasting Company, Incorporated.